carbon price
happening now in Ottawa. Ministers are speaking ahead of the question period. Let's take a listen.
Dealing with the affordability issue and the cost of home heating oil a different way.
Well, we are, Mia. I mean, and that's the thrust of the program. So as I've said many times to the same question that was asked by the Conservatives yesterday in the House of Commons, heating oil is anywhere from 2 to 4 times as expensive as natural gas, depending on the province or territory that you live in. It went up by 75% over 2022. And so it is creating a real squeeze. It's also true that, in particular in Atlantic Canada, but it's true across the country, that those who use heating oil tend to live in more rural areas and tend to be people who live under the median income. And so it creates even more stress for those kinds of folks. And so we made the decision that we actually did need to accelerate the ability to be able to actually displace the utilization of heating oil through the implementation of heat pumps. That will take some time. And so my department will be delivering on a program to enable folks to get free heat pumps in every province and territory in this country to displace the use of heating oil. In the short term, we are giving people relief, and it is a pause. It is not an elimination of the price on pollution. It is a pause for 3 years to give people the time to implement that long-term measure.
But the cost from the carbon price was supposed to be covered by the rebates, and we hear many times that 8 out of 10 families get more back than they pay, yada, yada, yada. So if that's the case, why get rid of the carbon price instead of dealing with the cost of home heating oil a different way?
So, as I said before, we are dealing with the cost of home heating oil a different way, and that's called a heat pump. But I would say that in terms of 8 out of 10 Canadians, that's not 10 out of 10, right? So there are some Canadians who do not get as much back as they pay. That tends to be either people who have very large homes or very energy inefficient cars, but it's actually also often people who have heating oil because of the disproportionate cost associated with that. So we've decided to do a short-term pause in the price in order to give people some relief at a time where the escalation in the costs associated with home heating that honestly had very little to do with the carbon price are very significant, and to put in place a program to get them off, and which will save families up to $2,500 a year in heating.
Do you regret how this has been communicated? It seems that it's not been received the way that maybe the government thought it would be.
Well, I think that depends. I mean, given that I'm one of the ones that's communicating, and I guess you're asking me to criticize myself. So I would just say that it was a difficult decision for the government to make, but we made it on the basis that it was important for us to be able to respond to what is a very pressing need right now. We need to ensure that we are communicating very clearly that we remain fully committed to addressing the climate issue. And in fact, this government has probably done more than almost any other government around the world to address the climate issue over the past number of years. That carbon pricing remains part of the bedrock of our climate plan, and that this is a very short-term issue to address a particularly acute affordability issue.
Mr. Chahal, do you want to comment on the
I'd like to just follow up on that and just say that Nova Scotia had 5 out of 10. That's where it was. So we addressed a very, very acute problem in Atlantic Canada, very real. Speaking here as home heating oil user, now switched to electric. I can tell you the difference in price. I can also tell you, as someone who makes a decent wage, that the cost of putting in heat pumps or an electric furnace was cost prohibitive. It's a lot of money. So we identified a problem, and we have found a solution. And I don't, you know, this is a pause. The price on pollution is still very much there, and providing that signal to people that time is now, and we should do it now, and we can get a critical mass of people on heat pumps in the next 3 years.